Alright, we are going to do a video on reconstituting clay. I've not done a video in a while, so this is one that I've been meaning to do. Now I've got a fair amount of clay that needs to be reconstituted. So you can see I've got a lot of dried clay. I'm dropping part of it. So what I'm going to do is, hang on, kind of bust some of this up, and then we'll add water to it and make new clay out of it. So this is it's a fairly long process, because what I've got to do is get all this slate is the word they use, and all that means is soaked in water. And it's kind of funny because with clay, dry clay will reconstitute faster than damp clay. So it has to be completely dried out and relatively small particles. You can see that's was a lid, didn't make it. Some of the bigger chunks don't want to bust up. That's not too bad. So I'll take all this and dump it into a bucket. Don't have to spill too much of it. It's a pretty good mix, but some of it is white and some of it's the speckled brown that I like really well. But it's all like a cone 6 to cone 10 clay, so it'll I don't have to worry about it melting out on me. But if you use a lower fire clay, you'll lose it'll melt off when it goes to a higher firing. So, alright, let me take this out and add water. Alright, so we've got a bucket of clay and we're ready to add water to it. You can see clay. It's all just little hard chunks. And it's kind of amazing, almost instantly when you add the water, it'll soften up. So, pardon my garden hose, it's needs a new one. So I'll fill the bucket up till it's just over the top of the dried clay, and then let it sit for a day or two. I don't know if you can see the goats in the background. Hercules. Got chickens over yonder. There's a little garden. Okay, that'll do it. So you can see, let me move the camera. We've got the, you can see it bubbling where the air is starting to escape out of the clay, and you can see it's already starting to dissolve. It's a pretty neat process, actually. So I'll just let this sit till in the morning, and then I've got a paint mixer that I put on a drill, and then we homogenize it, and then it'll be ready to pull out and start drying. Okay, we've let the clay set up overnight, and we're ready to mix it up. So I've got a paint mixer on a drill. I found out the corded drill is the only way to go, because the cordless doesn't seem to hold up as long under that kind of torque. So I've got a few little bugs that got in there last night, but that's alright, they'll burn out. when we fire the clay, you can see it's all nice and soft and falling apart. So we start mixing. There you go. Alright, as you can see, this is a fairly slow process, so I'm going to mix for a while and then I'll turn the camera back on and show you what the results are. I don't know if this shows or not. I've been mixing for about 5 minutes and most of the water is starting to get mixed in, but I've still got several lumps. I don't know if you can see the lumps or not. So you keep doing this. So you keep doing this till all the lumps are gone. It's all nice and smooth. Now it'll pull bubbles in, and you'll see the bubbles and think those are lumps. But after a while, after doing this for a while, you kind of learn to be able to tell the difference. I like to reverse it sometimes, put it forward sometimes, and in that way it'll pull up and push down. So anyway, I'll just let it mix for a while. I always forget this part. Supposed to add a little vinegar. That kind of helps do something. I think what it does is it helps to break down the clay particles. Alright, that's it. So I remembered what the vinegar was for. It's for plasticity. It increases the plasticity of the clay. It's one of the measures on, I don't know, how you look at clay. It makes it where it's more flexible. So if you roll out a string of clay and then you bend it, if it cracks, so the plasticity is low. If it doesn't crack, just bends, then the plasticity is high. So there's my clay. The next step now is it'll set for a day or two, and the water will separate back out, and I'll take a turkey baster and pull the water off, and then I'll be ready to start putting it on my plaster boards, or plaster bats rather, and let it continue the drying process. So it takes, I've seen some of it dry in a couple of days. I've seen some that took about 2 weeks for it to dry out. It all depends on humidity, how much water is still in the clay, I guess the type of clay. So anyway, that's it for now. Well, I've let the bucket of clay sit for a couple of days, and it didn't separate out as much as I thought it was going to. So I didn't get hardly any water at all. Take my ring off. So I've got my 2 plaster bats that I've cleaned up. They're ready to go. One of them has a severe injury, scarred it pretty bad, but it should still work out all right. So basically, this is the messy part. I'll take the clay out of the bucket, and I'll try to make like a dam all the way around. I'll try to avoid my scar. scarred area. The problem is you don't want to pick up any plaster into the clay, because the plaster, when you try to fire it to a higher cone, it tends to explode. And we don't like explosions in the kiln generally. Alright, so that was pretty good. Go a little bigger here. This is about as good a consistency as I've ever had reconstituting clay. So I must have had the water ratio just about right. And a lot of it for me is guesswork, because I don't know what I'm doing. That looks really nice. I've had it before where it was so wet that it wouldn't hold any shape at all, and I have to pour a little bit out and let it set up some before I could add any more to it. But this is gonna be good. So again, this is a mix of white and speckled brown, which I like the speckled brown pretty good. It's got some malachite in it. And I didn't really think about it, but people would ask me at the festivals, is it safe to put in the microwave? And I'd say yes, but I guess with the malachite in it, it may be a little more risky, since it is a type of metal. Normally I would take the bucket and pour into the center part, but this is so thick, I don't have to do that. We'll get it here in a minute. But now I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to turn my camera off. There's always clay on my hand. But it's like everything else I do. It's like when I paint, I have paint on everything I own. Except so far my work clothes in this job, I've not put any paint on them. I think I've come close a couple times. Alright, that's pretty good. So what I try to do is get a fairly even layer, because what it needs to do is sit on the side it's on now normally for a couple of days, but as thick as this is, it may not take as long. And the plaster absorbs a lot of the water out of it. So what it'll start to do is it'll start to peel off of the plaster back a little bit, and when I see it lift up, then I'll know that it's ready to turn. So then I'll turn it and let it sit on the other side for another day or two, and then I'll start trying to wedge it. And as I see that it's wedging up pretty good, eventually I'll get it all divided back up and put back in the bags. It seems like I've got some lumps, but I can't tell. It looked like I had a piece of paper towel. I've done that before, where when I'm throwing, I'll accidentally clean my hands and throw it into my scrap bucket and then not see it. And then the next thing you know, you've got paper mixed in, which it doesn't really hurt the clay because it'll burn out. The only real issue is when you're throwing on the wheel, sometimes that extra texture throws the pot off. So anyway, that's it. See you next time. So it's been 2 days since we poured the clay out on the plaster bats, and I was going to show you what I was talking about. Try not to jerk the camera around too much. You can see how it's separated from the plaster, And that's what I was talking about the other day. So once it does that, it's ready to flip. So let me set it back in the tripod if I can get it without dropping it. Okay. So this is kind of a messy part. A little bit. It's not too bad. So you try to get under it and lift the whole thing up. And flip it over. Not very good, but that'll work. The same thing with the other one. And that's it. Let it sit for another day or two, and then I'll start wedging on it, and we'll have fresh clay. Well, the clay's been setting up for 2 days, and now it's ready to wedge. I cut this piece in half yesterday because I wanted to check, see how it's coming along, and it's pretty good. It's pretty solid. It was still pretty wet yesterday, so now I need to kind of wedge it up to get it to be more homogeneous, so that it's mixed in good and it's all nice and even. Now, there's a thing called spiral wedging, where you do it in a circle, and for some reason I introduce more air into the clay when I try to do that. So what I do is I've given up hope, and I just do the ram's head wedge. And I don't know, you probably can't hear it, but every once in a while you'll hear an air bubble pop. So anyway, you do this with all clay for like 100 times, and when you get done, I'll end up putting it back in the bags. That's why I save all my bags. So something to put the clay in, and that's it. That's how you get from scrap clay pieces into brand new usable clay again. So that's the end of that one. Okay, we got it all wedged up. Hang on. I'm ready to put it in the bag. So I've got about, it's about 30 pounds of clay, I guess. Maybe 35. I don't have a way to weigh it, so I don't know. So the clay that came in the bag originally left some residue on the outside, on the inside. So what I'll do is I'll just turn it inside out for my new clay. And that way I got a nice clean surface, and I don't have old dried up clay crumbs on it. The trick is to make sure you get as much air out as you can of the bag, so that the clay doesn't try to dry up on you before you get it used up. Alright, so that's it. That's how you get from dried up scrap clay to a brand new bag of clay. Like that. Ain't nothing to it.